Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk with George Guy. This platform we're going to be using to talk about issues that surrounding our community, mainly around community development. And when we talk about community development, we think about housing, we think about education, we think about healthcare, we think about workforce. Also, there's athletics, but it's also people that servant leadership, people that are giving back to the community and well in many ways. You think about real estate, you can think about a bunch of different ways people that can give back. So we're kicking off the show, and again, we use this platform in a couple of years, but we're back in 2023 because we think it's appropriate to come back right now. So I thought I would celebrate with my first guest. He's a friend of mine, but he's also a colleague of mine. He's someone that has been in the industry for a number of years, and I was looking at his LinkedIn to get his bio, but it's just so much there. But he's a affordable housing professional. He's been like I said, in the industry for many years, and you're going to get a chance to get to know him and what he's all about. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my good friend, Damon Duncan.
George Guy, thank you for having me, the inaugural guest on Real Talk with George Guy. I'm honored, brother.
I couldn't have it any other way. You're someone that I truly have a profound amount of respect for. Someone that I've come to know and call a friend. But I thought it was important to kick off the show today to have a conversation with someone whom I know, and we can talk about community development issues. But as you've seen in the intro, when you and I talk about community development, we talk about it from it's expanded, and we have a lot of conversation about that. So, but this is going to be about you today. I want folks to get to know you and what you're doing to serve not just one or two communities, but you're in several communities right now, and I'm trying to get into more with the work with the good work that we're doing. So, Damon, why don't you tell the folks about you and kind of how you got started in this industry? Because I'm gonna preface this because I think it's important because we have a lot of folks that are probably trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. They have kids. And they're thinking about servant leadership, and so I think it's important for people to tell people your story in terms of how you got here and where does it all lead
to. Thank you, George. I got started in this industry really by accident. I was volunteering in a youth male mentorship program, a program that was hosted by the Housing Authority. It involved Housing Authority young people. I didn't know anything about the authority or any of that. I just knew it was an opportunity to mentor young Black men, and took that opportunity. And within about 30 days, I was notified that there was a position that became available at the Pontiac Housing Commission in Pontiac, Michigan, about 15 miles outside of Detroit, for a resident initiatives coordinator. And as fate would have it, I went for it, got hired, and the rest is history. My foundation is in resident services. Back in the days of drug elimination programs and economic development, self-sufficiency programs, and all of that, I became a student at grant writing, and it kind of took off from there. I made a conscious decision to move over to the development side of things because I saw where the real money lied, but I always maintained a passion for the residents, for the families that we serve. So that's just kind of how I got started over 31 years ago. Still kicking, still going strong.
Now, many of you may not know, but Damon has been, he said he started in resident services, but Damon has been the CEO of a few different agencies. He's right. Also a real estate development professional. He is alumni of Auburn. And so I don't want to do his name a disservice in terms of his unique qualifications, but talk to people about your journey. But one of the things I want folks to understand when we bring people on is your story. And I say this, and I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but Damon and I became friends. But I caught him at a difficult time in his life, and he had just lost his father. And I remember talking to him, and he told me about the role that his father played in his life. And him and his brother, I've come to know his brother as well. They have a unique stories from Detroit, Michigan. So can you tell people about your family and just kind of how you came to be Damon Duncan?
Yes, sir. Came from a blue collar family. My dad worked at Ford Motor Company, actually retired from Ford Motor Company after 40 years. My mom was a nurse, worked her way through nursing school, ultimately got a bachelor's in nursing, and actually started working on some master's degree courses just out of her passion for education. But a hardworking blue collar family from the city of Detroit, not the Detroit suburbs, not Novi, Farmington, no, city of Detroit, where they worked hard, man, to send my brother and I to uh, what we consider blue collar parochial schools, more than the inner city parochial school system. A lot of fantastic people have come out of that system, and parents sacrificed a lot, man. We had one car, and many times my brother and I had to catch the bus and just kind of work through the challenges of getting back and forth to school, back and forth to practice, and all of that. And education had become our passion and our purpose. And from there, the ups and downs of that type of upbringing, very challenging. But I'm grateful and thankful that my parents had an opportunity to see my brother and I be extremely successful in the various professional stages that we stood.
And Damon's also an athlete, played college football as well. And again, I was just fascinated by the amount of influence your father had on you, and how close you were, and how close of a family you had. So, again, I think it's good for people to understand and get to know what's behind that. Because I always say that we never got here alone, and so
Right.
by understanding our foundation, that's really important. So you're a young man in Detroit, Michigan, as you said, not in the suburbs. I got to say this because we want to represent our neighborhoods and our community. What side? Because I hear this from Detroit folks.
Oh man, in Detroit, it's all about the West Side, man. The West Side of Woodward, man, is where it all goes down. So we didn't venture over to the East Side unless we had a game, and after the game, we quickly got back over to the West Side. So West Side is where it's at. 7 Mile Road, Evergreen. That's where it happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. So talk to us, man, about being young in Detroit and what that did for you, and how that made you who you are today.
Yeah. Man, I don't really know where to start there. It was certainly challenging. Saw a lot of things happen to my neighborhood peers and friends. But because our parents had us involved in sports year round, uh, the AAU circuit way back before it was a real popular thing. I'm talking back in the late 70s, early 80s, football, basketball, or, track, all of that around year round. We were heavily involved and didn't have a lot of time to get mixed up with the wrong crowd, if you will. So again, I just that's a testament to the parenting that we had. It was all around us, but never really affected us. So grateful of that. We don't have any scars, any battle scars in the way of growing up in the streets of Detroit. But we did see a lot of things happen to our peers and some of our neighbors.
Good, good, good. A lot of folks have. I've had the benefit of through our career. I've been in Detroit several times over the last few years, so I'm seeing what Detroit is trying to become, and I think it's going to be a
Mhm.
great story, right? Because you hear a lot about the destruction, but really what they're trying to do to make sure that it's new, and everything else is what's happening right now. So some people just think about Detroit and they think it was bad, or they
Mhm.
think of BMF, or they think of all these other things that have happened. So, but I meet a lot of folks from Detroit, man, that have this sort of energy about themselves. So that's why I think it's important that people understand from someone who grew up in the city of Detroit, what that was like for them and what that meant for them in terms of what they're doing today.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was definitely some challenging times. I mean, at the height of the crack epidemic, around where we went to high school, Linwood and Joy Road, Dexter Road, all of that, we would see the guys out there all the time. Some of our peers were getting recruited by those guys, but uh, it was. I mean, you definitely had to watch your back at all times. I mean, it was not a walk in the park by any stretch, but and because of a lot of that, a lot of disinvestment and some some corruption in the city. You know, the city took a plunge, but as you indicated, it is making a comeback. I was there a couple of weeks ago. A colleague of mine drove me around downtown and some of the adjacent neighborhoods, and we were able to really see the commerce that is happening. Anybody that understands redevelopment and revitalization understand that there has to be some commerce, there has to be jobs, there has to be opportunities, and most of all, there has to be some quality housing and an infrastructure to support that housing. So all of that is happening and more. There were no vacancies on the lower level. The mixed-use buildings is thriving, is bumping. I'm very proud for the city, and it just speaks to the commitment of the Detroiters that stayed there and stuck it out, and it made sure that it was able to make the comeback that it's making today. So the neighborhoods still require a lot of work, but it's going to happen with the local community development corps and neighborhood development entities is gradually making a comeback. But downtown is just as beautiful and vibrant as any city. You know, Atlanta, Chicago will rival, Detroit will rival any of them at this
Sure.
juncture.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And particularly African American businesses, they've taken a particular interest in there. And shout out to Invest Detroit. I know they're doing a lot of collaborations and those type of
Mhm.
things there.
Mhm.
And so speaking of collaborations, you and I both have this philosophy about how important it is in terms of community collaboration. Um, talk to us about you know the work that you've done as a CEO in terms of housing authorities, and where were your, you say you started in resident services. I happen to know that you're really strong in the development area.
Mhm.
You've
Mhm.
expanded now. You have consulting services now. But talk about that journey though, that
Mhm.
it took for you to get to Clesia Ventures.
I've always had what I call a little something on the side. You know, once I discovered in my 20s that I had a knack for the nuances and the details of preparing grant applications that a lot of people didn't have the patience for. I started doing that for other housing authorities. Even when I was working for different authorities, I would do that for other housing authorities, and just supplementing my income became addictive, and continued that, and it got to the point where I was able to consult full time. Worked for a consulting company, ran my own company full time, and I was able to be out there for about 8 years until I had the opportunity to come to Elgin as the CEO, as you indicated. Got some great experience there. Done a lot of development. I think we've done upwards of 11 transactions in 7 years there. Went over to Richmond Redevelopment Authority, and from there went to the Montgomery Housing Authority before deciding to, I'm gonna take the plunge and do this on my own 100%. And we haven't looked back, man. We got a great team, and we haven't looked back. We have not looked back.
And I want to get to that, but I'm going to go back to Elgin. And if people understand Elgin, what's the population of Elgin? First of all, it's considered a suburb of Chicago.
Yeah, it's considered a suburb of Chicago. Actually, the city's slogan is called Elgin, the city in the suburbs. Roughly 150,000 people, the population of Elgin, the last I checked.
So this is important because the housing authority is actually was considered maybe a small to medium sized housing authority, right?
That's correct.
And you said 11 transactions.
Yep.
Talk to us about those, because I think there are people out there that don't know what that means when we talk about transactions and what they look like and how innovative you were able to be in those transactions.
Hmm. Hmm. The first deal that we did in Elgin was a RAD deal, of which RAD hit the street summer of 2012. I think everyone knows that. We submitted initially out the gate. We were approved by December and submitted a 9% application in March of that following year, March of 2013, which was subsequently approved out the gate. And the authority self developed that. We hired a general contractor, but we self performed that transaction. And there was a lot of NIMBYism. We did an acquisition, a demo of a small building, built a mid rise next door to the high rise building, did a major renovation in the high rise building. And that just kind of opened the floodgates in terms of the city being open and receptive to quality, affordable housing. It wasn't more projects, it wasn't more of that stuff, but it was something new, something innovative. I had an opportunity to go and visit Elgin just last week, on a consulting assignment, and the facility looks great. The amenities, Green Enterprise certified building with rooftop gardens and low VOC materials and a lot of common space, which is not all that common, no pun intended, but common space is not common in affordable housing because rentable square feet is the dominating factor as relates to the science of affordable housing. But we're able to provide common space, community rooms, theater rooms, and a number of amenities that the residents still take great pride in today. So that kind of opened up the floodgates. We redeveloped all of the family sites, and we put project-based vouchers on the street, of which we would issue vouchers if we were partners in the deal. So we were partnered in 5 or 6 deals, and we, as an agency, we closed 4 of our own. And I think there's still transactions going on today that we put in place.
And listen, I just want to applaud you on what you did there. I mean, that you took and that's why I want people to really understand what's possible. I think that people look at these things and they don't understand, first of all, what the housing authority can do in terms of being a partner.
Mhm.
And you were able to leverage. How did you this development stuff? How did that happen? And talk to me about, if you can, talk to us about Auburn, the MRED program.
Okay, let me back you up a little bit. My first entree into development, I was a head of resident services and other. The title got real long at the Flint Housing Commission, where I worked about 7 years. And everybody knows where Flint is by now if they didn't know before. And it doesn't have a positive connotation, but we worked there about 7 years. And because I had the primary role of writing all the grants for the agency wanted to go after Hope 6. And that was kind of my entree into the language and the lingo and what's all involved in redevelopment. And so from there, we didn't get the grant, but it did arm me with enough so that I interviewed with, which is now I consider a big sister of mine, great friend in Detroit. She headed up, Miss Therese Walton headed up the Modernization and Development Department in Detroit. She hired me on, and after a couple of years, she moved on, and I became the department director. And as they say, the rest is history. So I kind of learned development on the fly. And then I wanted to, as you indicated, I wanted to go back to school. I already had a master's in public administration. I wanted to go back to school and really sharpen my sword in terms of development, general commercial development as well as housing. And decided to go to Auburn University, which has a program that started in 2010. And we just, the first graduates were in 2012. We just celebrated 10-year anniversary and got involved with their program. Has provided a tremendous amount of experience, exposure, and opened up a whole new world beyond affordable housing. Those principles I can apply to this industry, particularly as we try to move the industry out of the subsidy realm and into more of a market rate realm that's supported by commercial real estate, land use, land acquisition, and other real estate types of modalities.
And absolutely, I'm just going to add to that he's also the former chair of the alumni of the MRED program as well.
That
So here
that
we
is
are.
that is
So here,
correct.
that's right. So here we are, Damon. You are been in the industry for quite some time. Did a lot of work in Elgin. Went to Richmond and did a lot of good things. Moved them forward. Then you went to Montgomery, which, as we know, is a very historic city in terms of the rights of African Americans,
Right,
and got them to choice neighborhoods planning grant, which is appropriate for that city and that community.
right.
And then you said, I'm going to expand and do my own thing. Talk to us about Clesia Ventures and what's that's all about and the mission and what you're trying to do.
Okay, Clesia Ventures. People often ask me, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's taken out of the word Ecclesiastes, which is a book in the Bible. And one of the definitions means bringing people together. So whether we're doing the development side of things, whether we're doing the resident services side of things, everything is driven by people. We wanted our company to have a level of humanity to it. Everything is about service that we can render to people. So what that end product looks like varies. We're well versed in, like I said, real estate development, strategic planning, training, uh, strategic repositioning, uh, Section 8, Section 9, grant writing, the choice neighborhoods that you indicated, as well as resident and supportive services. So we have a suite of services that we're really good at. When I say we as a team, not me as an individual, but we as a team, very, very strong team, very capable. And we're just trying to, carve our little market share in this industry. I think we're doing pretty good thus far.
1 year in, right? In terms of what you, first of all, the business has been going on for a while, but 1 year full
Right,
time.
right. 1 year, just a little over 1 year full time. And when I left the housing authority, we had 2 clients, and today I think we have upwards of 13 housing authorities that we're providing service for in one form or fashion or another.
And really, as we talk about this, and I think people, it's important that people see you and your company and the work you've done, but you as an individual and the work that you've done. And, we're leaving Black History Month right now, but we celebrate 365 days a year. I think it's important for people to understand the focus. Talk a little bit about that in terms of your courage, and in terms of being an entrepreneur, and what it takes to get to the where you're at right now. There's folks that want to know that, right?
Yeah, everybody wants to be in business until it's time to really be in business. It comes with a lot of sleepless nights, and you worry about how you gonna pay people, how you gonna pay bills, how you gonna maintain your own lifestyle, and just a number of things. And we've not just birthed Clesia Ventures, but we also, my wife is heading up a Clesia speech therapy clinic, which we launched over a year and a half ago. That's very profitable in Stockbridge, Georgia. Recently launched a transportation and logistics company. We're at the beginning stages of that, but the bread and butter is the affordable housing piece, of which we're doing some market rate investments as well, and really just trying to expand and diversify what we get involved in. So no one industry, no one client, no one way of doing business is going to dominate what we do. So just being separated from the authority allows a lot more creativity. You're limited in your role as CEO for the authority. You're limited and bound by a lot of constraints. Some of them human constraints, some of them policy constraints, and regulatory constraints. So just able to be creative outside of that space. I think we've done a really good job, but it's not for the faint at heart. Some days you wonder why you did it, but most days you're glad you did it. You wake up in the morning and you feel real good about putting your hand to the plow and making something happen that didn't exist before.
All right, Damon, in 2 minutes or less, define community development.
Community development is placemaking specifically for people, whether that placemaking being space, whether it's real estate, physical real estate, commercial real estate, uh, or just the general built environment. Placemaking, community development is for people's enjoyment, for people's prosperity, and for people's quality of life. That is true community development, where the community thrives economically, it thrives physically, and it improves the overall quality of the human experience.
And that takes collaboration, right? That takes a whole, as they say, the
With,
village to.
oh, without a doubt. I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast on partnerships and collaborations, and it is so important. If we have as leaders, we have ideas, but we can't uh, carry out those missions without the support of a great team. Uh, to my students, also I'm adjunct faculty at Auburn Masters of Community Planning. So what I tell my students, I always give them a quote, and I tell them to remember this quote. And I say, teamwork makes the dream work. Anybody heard of that? All the hands go up. And I say, but do you know the rest of that quote? Because there's a comma there. Nobody knows it. And the rest of it, and it goes, teamwork makes the dream work. But the dream becomes a nightmare when the leader has big dreams and a bad team. So a lot of people don't know the second half of that quote. So to your point, teamwork. It's all about having a great team, and every bit of success that Clesia Ventures has been able to experience, Montgomery Housing Authority, Richmond Redevelopment House, because every stop that I've made, we've made an indelible impact in terms of having been there. There's demolition going on right now out of Richmond Redevelopment Housing Authority Section 18 application that we pushed through against all odds, and now they have no choice but to revitalize. We got some significant grants in just a short amount of time that we were there, a little year and a half. Some significant grants, the largest Ross grants to date, upwards of 700,000. In Montgomery, as you indicated, within the first 6 months, we secured a Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant. Against all odds, everybody said, well, Montgomery went for that back in 2011. And I told them, you don't see what I see. And the team got on board, and eventually they were able to see, and we were able to be successful. So we left them with a good revitalization tool. So and we're just trying to duplicate that for a number of other agencies. But it takes a great team. It takes a great team, a great motivated team. Sometimes they don't always feel appreciated, but that's when leadership comes in, when you got to remind your team that, hey, they're valuable, and you wouldn't be where you are without them.
My man, Damon Duncan. So Damon, now listen, you're the first one on this podcast, and you know I like music. And every good servant leader. Now, I got this from actually from the movie I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. If you remember that, Keenan Ivory Wayans was talking to my man Slade. He said, "Hey," and the man says, "Hey man, when you make an interest," he said, "every good hero must have a theme song." Yeah. So I asked my servant leader colleagues, because I consider you heroes, what would your theme song be? You probably have two or three, but give me one theme song.
I got a few of them for different scenarios, but one that I would use overwhelmingly is Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. Motown, I'm a old Motown guy from the city of Detroit. And what that speaks to, beyond just being a love song, is the challenges that we go through on a daily basis, the desire to keep pushing.
There you go. So this is what I got for you right now. Can you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
That music, the words, right? What do you say, though?
Ain't no. You don't want me to sing, then they'll cut the podcast off.
Ain't no river wide enough. And I think that's a good way to cap this interview. Someone who I respect in the industry, and I speak on behalf of many others, colleagues, and not just colleagues and peers, residents as well, for the work that you're doing. And I know this is the first show, but you're going to come back. We're going to bring the Clesia Ventures team back, and even probably talk to your wife too about the work that she's doing as well. And I'm gonna get your family on, because I know what your son is doing, and your other children as well. So again, tremendous amount of respect for you, Damon, and the work that you're doing. Let people know how they can get in touch with you and Clesia Ventures in terms of if they want to get some consulting work.
Okay, you can visit us on our website, www.clesiaventures, CLESIA Ventures, VENTURES.com. My phone number, 404-805-4102. Let's build something.
Let's build something. Let's get to work. And what we say, we coming.
We coming.
We coming. So Damon, again, man, I want to tell you, I want to thank you for being our guest and kicking this thing off for me and helping me getting this thing started. I think it's important that people know how community works, how collaboration works, and some of the bright minds that are behind some of the work that's being done. And not only that, man, you know how I am about inspiration, man. Bringing folks like you on here really inspires people to, as you say, build something. And I think that can happen in any community. So again, man, I want to thank you, and I wish you luck. And if there's anything that we can do to help you in terms of the mission of Clesia Ventures, which you guys are off to a good start already. So Thanks again.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be the inaugural podcast, of which I know is going to be a very, very successful venture. Yeah, you have been a tremendous supporter. Your authority, your agency has supported us, and we're going to make you look good for it. We're going to make you look good. You're doing some wonderful things in Fort Wayne, MTW agency, now a Choice Neighborhoods recipient. And you just really put Fort Wayne on the map in terms of what authority really should be. But we know that there's a lot of work yet to be done. I mean, there's a lot that has to be done to cure some of the ills that still plague our properties. So again, thank you for having me.
Damon, thanks again, man. And again, you all are going to be back on here again, man. So thanks for joining me today.
Most definitely. Y'all have a great day.
Wow, what fun to talk to people that are serious and committed to the work. We call those folks servant leadership, committed to communities, committed to people, and really want to advance people and advance the communities they work in. That's what we're going to be talking about. Every show that we try to do, we want to make sure we provide some impact. And that's why we started with Damon. If you talk about impact, he's going to be there. He's going to come back. But we're going to be talking to many more people that are from various different communities, rural, urban, per se, from the education field, social service field, some of the health field as well, healthcare professionals as well. So we want to make sure that you all understand what's going on in the community. And if you're out there, we also want to inspire you as well. So with that being said, we'll see you next time on Real Talk with George Guy.